Good morning and welcome to the video for Wednesday, January the 6th. This is going to be a video for 5th grade. So on Monday, we were working with addition using unlike denominators. We're going to use the same kind of strategy that we used on Monday, or strategies rather. And we are going to do this with subtraction now. So let's go ahead and take a look at our unlock the problem. We already have a picture drawn for us. What they would like us to do is to go ahead and take a look at this and be able to go ahead and put blocks that are this size. Obviously, we are not at school, so we don't have the blocks, but we can try to use some reasoning or use equivalent fractions to be able to solve this without being able to do the picture. And eventually, that's what we're going to need to do anyway. We're not going to have all of these blocks and stuff when we have tests and everything. So you could draw a picture and that could definitely help you. But I'm going to show you one way that we can do that. So what I want to do is I am going to use, I guess it'll be orange. And so I'm going to go ahead and try to draw in the rest of this. So we're going to use two 1/8 sized blocks for each 1/4 size yellow block that we have. And so this would be what I would be starting with. It could look like this, but the parts that I'm taking away, I'm going to put an X through. And so we'll eventually see something that maybe looks a little bit similar to this, where they'll start with that and then they'll put an X through it, which means that's what we're taking away. And so I am taking away 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 parts. So if I started with 6 parts out of 8 minus 1 part out of 8, then that also gives me 5/8, which would match what we just did in our picture. Okay, so I'm going to do something similar to what they're asking you to do in your book, but maybe just a little bit different. But I think that might help us. So let's go to the top of our next page, and we're going to kind of look at this as well. So for our wow, words are hard. For our next, or another example, or our next example, we are going to look at part A here. So we've got 2/3 minus 1/6. So again, we have our orange blocks that are going to represent 1/3 each. We can go ahead and use 1/6 size blocks, and we could use 3 of those to fill in that space. Yeah. So we are going to have 4 of these 1/6 size blocks. We are going to take away one of those. And so if we were to go ahead and do that, oops, here we go. We would say that we would go ahead and draw these under here. Oh, whatever. Okay, so I guess I could just use this, but we're gonna basically slide all 3 of these into this spot here. So I'm just gonna do that in this space here. And then you can find a space to do that in one of these 3. All 3 of these are the exact same problem. So what we're gonna do is this one is also gonna be worth a 1/6. Oops. And then this one is gonna be worth a 1/6. And then this one is gonna be worth a 1/6. So we're going to have 4 of these 1/6 size blocks, and we are going to subtract one of those. So I'm going to put an X through one of these. And so when we are done, we are going to have 3 of those left over, which matches our answer that we got over here. So this would give us 3/6. It would also give us the equivalent of 1/2. So if we were to compare to the top red fraction strip, we would be filling up roughly half of that. So if I were to draw a straight line through here, you'll see that we're counting this part here, which would be half of that shape, and then we are not counting the other half. Let's see. Let's go down to our share and show. Again, you have the option to go ahead and pause and rewind if you need to see these. I'm trying to keep these videos right about 20 minutes. So assuming that you're pausing and working, it'll take you about 40 minutes to do that and about another 20 minutes to do the homework. So about the same amount of time that we would spend in class each day, except you'll also be done with the homework, hopefully, within that hour to make it a little bit easier for you guys. Okay, so number one, we have our fraction strips. Write your answer in simplest form. So we are looking at 7/10 minus 2/5. So what we can do is actually go ahead and take a look at this part. We already have our comparison. And so we know that two of these purple blocks are going to take up the same amount of space as one of the green. So if we are taking away two of these green blocks from here, we can go ahead and X through all four of these and then get our answer. So I'm going to X through this one, this one, this one, and this one. And what's going to be left over is 1, 2, 3/10. So it's a little bit easier if we don't have to make the picture for ourselves before we do this. So I will tell you that. So I want you to try something similar with the next one. Now, we're going to have a little bit of a problem on this one. We need to go ahead and figure out how to make this into two fractions that have the same common denominator. So one of the ways that we can do that is to go ahead and multiply our bottom number together. That's going to give you something that could help with that. Because if we go ahead and finish this shape, we are not going to be able to work exactly evenly to make the 1/4 parts line up with 1/3. So we may need to change everything to parts out of the answer to 3 times 4 to go ahead and do that. So I'll show you what that can look like here in a moment. Go ahead and see if you can figure out the answer. So we want to find our equivalent fraction for 2/3, which has parts out of a larger number that you can get by doing 3 times 4. And then we want to go ahead and multiply diagonally. So 4 times 2 or 3 times 1 would give us our numerators. So go ahead and do that. Pause the video if you need to, and I'll talk you through that step and what we could do with the picture to help us with that when we're done. All right, so assuming that you did that, we are going to be stuck with a situation that's a little bit weird here. So what we would end up having in a perfect world would be parts out of 12. So we would do 2/3 would become 8/12. I don't know why I did that. I was trying to draw a subtraction sign. Minus, and then we do 3 times 1. That would give us 3/12. And when we are done subtracting, we would get 5/12. So here we go. We are going to need to change this into parts over 12. So to do that, I need to break up all of these into 4 equal parts. And then we could go ahead and say that we were doing that. If we lined up our fourths evenly, we should be at 3, then 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 should be the next fourth here. And then 7, 8, 9. So that one should be somewhere around here. And then that should hopefully work out. But what we're going to do is we're going to take away 3 of these parts. That's going to leave us with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we would draw basically 4 extra lines, or divide each of these thirds up into 4 parts rather, to find the answer for that. All right. Oh, that's the bottom of the page. So let's go to our next page. So for this one, we're going to need to do something similar. We are going to be taking away 12ths. So think about what we would do to get from 6 to 12ths by changing the shape. and then that will give us what we can use to go ahead and subtract out. So go ahead and pause the video if you need to, and when you're ready, hit play, and we'll go ahead and look at the answer for this one. So to get from sixths to twelfths, I need to divide each of these up in half. And so if I do that, I kind of see where the lines are a little bit harder to see because of the way the picture is. Oops. All right. So I am starting with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 parts out of 12 once I do that. And then that is going to be worth 3 parts that I'm taking away. So I'm going to put my X's through here. And my answer is going to give me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 parts out of 12. Again, if I kept going out here and added the extra 2 parts, that would give me 12 parts in this shape. All right, so number 5 looks easy enough. Same with number 4. So I want you to go ahead and do number 4 and number 5 on your own and see what you can figure out for the answers. Again, we can go ahead and X out the part that we're taking away. It looks like we are taking away 3/10 for this one, and then we are taking away 1/4 for this one. So you can kind of use the other part to figure that out. You may need to add some parts on this one to help you figure out how much is left over. All right, so go ahead and pause the video if you need to. When you're ready, go ahead and hit play. All right. So let's go ahead and take a look at our answer. I'm not going to go ahead and try to find all the colors. I know I can change it down here to make it like different colors. So I could do the purple and then go ahead and do that. But it's probably not best use of my time right now. So if I go ahead and take away these 3 parts, I'm going to have 2 parts out of 10 left over. If I write that in simplest form, it's going to end up being 1 part out of 5. So if you at least got the 2 parts out of 10, that's fine. What we would need to do to get the parts out of 5, we would need to go ahead and stretch this all the way out and keep adding to the model, including the section that we're not going to count, and divide that out. And so the amount that we would have left over would be 2 of those 10 parts, and we could make that into fifths. But I'm not as concerned about that as I am with you being able to understand what the answers are for the subtraction part when we're doing this. So number 5 is a little bit easier. Our 1/4 is going to be worth 2 of these brown 1/8 blocks. So if I go ahead and cross through those, I'm going to be left with 1 left over, and that would give me 1 part out of 8. And for our last one, we want to go ahead and change this. So we can go ahead and find a common denominator for 3 and 2. And so if we do that, we can go ahead and finish drawing out our shape if we need to. We might not need to, actually, because you should be able to tell from looking at that. So if we went ahead and did this and then changed it to 6 equal parts, and we're counting 4 of those parts, we're taking away half of our shape, which is going to be worth 1, 2, 3 of those 6 parts. The amount that we would have left over would be 1 part out of 6. This is, I forget how many videos I've recorded today, so it's becoming more difficult to actually speak coherently, so I apologize for that. Let's go ahead and do 7 through 9. What we're going to do, we're not going to worry about making a picture. We are just going to go ahead and find our equivalent fraction for both of these to make them have the same common denominator if we need to. or just change one of them so that we get it to match the denominator of the other one, and then we'll work through the problem without using a picture. So number 7, we can go ahead and start by changing this to be parts out of 10. So think about what number we would need to multiply 5 by to get to 10, and then we need to rewrite this fraction. So go ahead and do that real quick. Pause the video if you need to take some time to think about that. Hopefully this one's really easy for us. We are going to multiply by 2. So that would give us 6 parts. And what I normally do is write this out to the side. We're going to get 6 parts out of 10. We're going to take away 3 parts out of 10. So 6 minus 3 would give us 3. And that would be parts out of 10. Let's see. Let's do number 8. So again, we're changing this side to make it match this side for the denominator. So when we do that, think about how many times we can count by 3 to get to 12. And that's the number we're going to multiply the top number by as well when we get our equivalent fraction with parts over 12. So pause the video if you need to go ahead and do that. So this part is going to be 4 parts out of 12. 5 minus 4 would give us 1 part out of 12. And then our last one, which is actually going to require us to change both fractions to get a common denominator. It looks like we're going to go for 10 for this one. So go ahead and use that. Again, we are going to multiply this side by 2. We're going to multiply this side by 5. So go ahead and find your equivalent fractions, do your subtraction, and go ahead and pause the video if you need to, hit play when you're ready to go, and here we go. So this side is going to be 3 times 2 gives us 6, 2 times 5 gives us 10, 5 times 1 gives us 5, 5 times 2 gives us 10. And so when we subtract, we are going to be left with 1/10. And I'm not going to worry about either of those. I do want to do number 13, although I do like this one because it has to do with food, but I'm hungry, so I don't want to think about that right now. Number 13. Yeah, I'm recording these during the day. I've already eaten lunch and I'm already wanting dinner. So number 13, the shaded part of the diagram shows what Margie had left over from a roll of construction paper that measured 1 yard. So when we started, there was 1 yard worth of material. She's going to use 3/4 of a yard to make a poster, and we want to figure out how much is left over when we are done. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 parts here. We're counting 7 of those parts. Oh yeah, because we are counting 7 of those parts. The shaded part is what was left over. So we started with 1 yard, and this is how much of a yard is left over. Of the amount that's left over, she's going to use 3/4 of a yard. Okay, so number 13, to determine how much paper will be left after making the poster, are we going to do 1 minus 3/4? Think about that for a moment. Think back to what I just said. If you need to rewind the video so you can hear me say that again, go ahead and do that. This one is going to be false because we are actually starting with 7/8. So once upon a time, we had 1 yard worth of material, but 1/8 of that has already been used somewhere. So we have 7/8 left. We're going to take away 3/4, and then that will give us the information that we need for the rest of the problem. So the next one, the fractions 3/4 and 6/8 are equivalent. So if we were to go ahead and group these together, I'm going to choose red for this. So I'm going to group 2 of these together to make 1/4. This is going to be worth 1/4. kind of like back in third or fourth grade, when I would have you circle groups of things to get our fractions. We can do something similar with this. So here are my three groups of parts out of four. So that would equal 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of my blue parts. So that one would be true. And the last one, we will have 1 yard of paper remaining. So actually just making my groups has given us a good hint for what that answer should be, because the groups that I made are going to be the part that she uses. So what is not marked is going to be what is left over. And so it does look like we will have 1 part left over. So that one will also be true. All right, let's look through our homework real quick because we're about at that time. For the homework, I'm going to ask you to do number 2 through 6. We are going to skip 7, 8, and 9, but we are going to do 10 and 11. Okay, so we are going to do 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10, and 11 on the front. So I want to give you more chances to kind of look at some of the word problems, although we're not going to do as many of those on the back. But I want you guys to do some review as well. So all of these we can use equivalent fractions. You could use a picture to help you if you need to. Some of these already have pictures that you could go ahead and work with from earlier in the lesson as well. And so on the back, we are going to do numbers 3 through 6. So for number 3, we want to rewrite this. We're going to round to the nearest tenth of a minute. Number 4, it looks like we are doing division. So again, we need to make sure that we are writing that problem correctly. So it should look like 198 divided by 12. And then keep in mind, one of the lessons that we did back in the fall with talking about what the remainder would mean, if there is a remainder for this, then we need an extra table, even if that extra table will not be full and have 12 people sitting at it. All right, so it looks like number 5, Sam is spending a certain amount of money. We want to figure out how much money he spent, and then add that to the amount that he has left over to find out what he started the day with. And then the last one is just a multiplication problem. So if you remember when we were doing our chapter working with multiplying with decimals, we can move our decimal point to the right. And the number of times that we move it to the right would be the number of zeros that we have in our multiple or power of 10 that we have. So this time we have 1,000, so we have 3 zeros. So that should give you a hint of what you need to do to find the answer for that. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask in Google Classroom. Hope you have a great day, and I will see you tomorrow.